And hello again, everybody. Ali, Lloyd. And hopefully you are all joining again. Let me see if you're appearing in the room. Yep, I can see 72 of you have already made it back in, and more coming every minute. This is great. This is wonderful. I hope you're all enjoying this. So here is Ali. He's one of our top developers, and he's been leading the charge in Infinite LiveCode for the last several months or so or more. And he is very well placed to take you through some in-depth widget building, which I know he's very excited about. Yeah. So here we go, Ali, and it is now all yours. Take it away.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm going to take you through some sort of a whirlwind tour of some things I find interesting in widget building. So I'll tell you what the plan is. Just going to share my screen. This month, it's sort of a mixed bag of things that I think might be interesting to look at. First of all, I'm going to make a small Koch snowflake widget, which should show you a little bit about how you can create paths, translate paths, and rotate them and things like that. Then I'm going to quickly imitate the Mac OS Sierra checkbox. That's to show you a little bit about what we think is maybe the best way to approach theming. Then I'm going to make a small animated checkbox. I say I'm going to make, I've already made these things. I'm just going to take you through them. So there's a little check mark there that's animated. Then this is all time pending. I'm going to talk about handler variables because it's just something that I really like, and they're really powerful. And at the end, or towards the end, I'll talk mainly about Android native stuff. First of all, the button, and then things that you can do right now that DP7 is out with Java FFI. So if this month is a mixed bag, subsequent months will be bespoke bags. Basically, the idea is that I'm going to try and tailor this to specific questions you have, either arising from the introductory course, the widget course that was announced earlier, anything more substantial that we don't get around to this session, and just anything in general about LiveCode Builder and extensions. So if you could email in the course of the next month, support@livecode.com with the subject widget queries, and then I'll sort of put them into categories, try and answer them in the form of code demonstrations or widgets. So this month I've sort of done that by making up the questions, the things that I perceive as interesting. So I hope that they interest you. So first of all, here the questions that led to this example. I imagine some people wanting to find out about using simple canvas path operations. And also a common question is, what are the benefits of using LCD over LCS for certain things? So this is my answer in the form of a widget. And it's a fractal, the Koch snowflake. So I claim this is maths minimal. Not that I have anything against maths, indeed, I'm a big fan of it. But I think it's nice to know that you can just do this with sort of logic, essentially. Maths is logic, maybe Herman will be claiming, and I probably agree. And because it's a recursive process, you actually only need to know how to create this this basic path here, and then various rotations will get you to what you want. So let me just, oh, not that screen. Talking about recursion, you might get some repeated screen there. So first of all, just going to create a new stack here, and this is a complete version that I've already installed. Just to, well, for reference, basically. Let's check the inspector. So this snowflake has got a recursion level property, which we can increase and decrease. So I'm going to leave it at recursion level 1 to start with. And now here is a very minimal step towards making that snowflake. So let's just roughly this at the moment will be the entire top of the triangle. So actually the analogy is really with recursion level 0 here. So imagine this is the same as this line here. I'm just going to go through and successively uncomment things from this code to show you how to get to the finished snowflake. So first of all, we only need a couple of variables here, the level of recursion, and we need to keep track of how big the triangle can be to fit within the widget bounds. At some point, we'll uncomment this and create the recursion level property, exposing it to LiveCode script. And let's skip over a few of these things. So here is the onPaint handler. At the moment, it draws a path from 0 to m size, so that's the length of the triangle. And all of my operations here are just relative to 0, 0 to make things simple. So obviously there's a y coordinate missing here, but it's just from 0 to something that's m size further along. And then at the end, it gets translated down just because eventually there'll be a bump on the top of this triangle and we don't want it to go over the widget bounds. And here's the get path between handler. If the recursion level is 0, then it will just return you the line between the 2 points that you're asking for. But that's obviously not particularly interesting. So let's quickly change the initial level of recursion here and about to switch it again. So now we have a recursion level of 1, and I've commented stuff out so that all it's drawing is the first little segment there. Okay, so let's do the left, oh no, not that bit, this bit. Let's get what the first middle segment here. So this bit that's not commented out, is this first segment. So for the second segment, all we do is create a path. It's going to be just first of all, it will live at the top here, so that the rotation is simple. We're going to rotate it by -60 so that it tips up the way we need it to, and then just translate it to the appropriate point along the other line. So I think I've got a visual demonstration of this on the slide. So that's this one. It gets rotated -60 and then just moved along. And there we go. That's that part of the snowflake. Similarly, next part here. Now my trick here is to put it to the left of the origin and rotate by 60. So again, this is just so that you don't actually have to think about points, and you can always translate around, rotate around the origin. And then it makes the translation a little bit different this time. Here we're rotating by 60, and then we move it across 2. So we don't have to calculate this point at the top here. As long as we've got the target point here at the origin, we're just moving it across 2. So this is kind of what I mean by maths minimal. You're just sort of thinking about where stuff needs to go. Oh, I did not save it. Okay, and that's that segment there. And finally, the last segment is simple enough. Again, it's just create a straight line segment between the 2 endpoints. And shift it across. Now that that's been done, then creating this whole snowflake is extremely similar to what we've just done. All we're going to do is create 2 more copies of this, rotate them in the appropriate way, and translate them in the appropriate way. So first of all, we create another copy of it. Here it's exactly the same, except it's shifted to the left of the origin. And then we rotate by -120 to rotate it around here to form the left edge of the triangle. There we go. And similarly for the right edge, we rotate it the other way, 120 degrees, and then move it across so it touches the top right corner. And there we go. And all that remains for this really is to uncomment out this property definition. So this is how we define a property. We've already got the variable that we want for the getter. We've already got a setter for it, which just, I've got a maximum of 7 there just because it takes quite a long time to do more than 7. And we define the editor. This is what's going to pop up in the property inspector, the integer editor. It's got a minimum value, and we add this step here so that it has a twiddle in the property inspector. I'll show you actually if we don't have that. So this is just an integer field, but then having the step in there gives us this twiddle. And there you have it. That's the Koch snowflake. Does anybody have any questions about that first little example there?
Just having a look there to see if there are any actual questions, but there's nothing terribly. There's some talk about T-shirts and a question as to whether the Koch snowflake is political. I don't understand that. Do you get that?
Yes, it's someone who's sort of easily offended, I think.
Oh, well, I don't see.
Okay, well, that's fine. We can just crack on.
You can crack on, yep.
Get back to the slides here. You'll see a little bit of stuff about the code. And I hadn't finished actually. I was going to say there's an old LiveCode blog about creating a snowflake using points of a graphic. And the advantages of doing it this way, we've got sub-pixel positioning for the snowflake. We can integrate properties with the property inspector. And there's usually more encapsulation, although in the example in the blog post, it is just a graphic. So let's just show you that example. And there's just an iterate button to do this. But you can see after the same number of iterations there that it's already less crisp than the example we've just made in LCB. And obviously it doesn't have the property inspector integration and various things. I mean, once you resize it, it's sort of all over. Okay, let's get rid of these. Okay, my next example, I wanted to show you that sometimes when you're creating widgets, you're going to be given design files and you're going to need it to fit multiple themes. And so I've posed this hypothetical question, what's the cleanest way to have multiple themes? So I'm answering this with a widget that imitates the Mac OS Sierra checkbox. So let's take a look at this. Now, checkbox. Themes checkbox. Now, here's my imitation of the checkbox. Because I'm not on Mac OS Sierra on this laptop, I wonder if it'll be. Yes, okay, it's a very different. I do have a picture of the Mac OS Sierra one. So here's my imitation versus the Sierra, and this is just using export snapshot. It's a relatively decent attempt, I think, and with the plus that you get a better snapshot if you're snapshotting at a larger size with the widget. So the best way that we've found, and there probably are many ways to do something like this, but the best way that we've found is to define a constant array which tells you what all the colors are. So this is just for the colors. We've got the color of the border in its normal state, the color of the border when the checkbox is depressed, color when it's checked, and the color when it's checked and depressed. And the good thing about doing it like this as well as demonstrating to you that LCD has array constants, which are very useful. So here is how you might go about using something like that. So you can use the local variables that are defined to generate a sort of state string. And if you've got also a theme property, then all you need to do is get the appropriate part of the constant array that has been defined, and then for each bit of the checkbox that you want to draw, you just index in by the state. So let's look at that array again. We've got Mac OS theme as opposed to default theme. So you want the border color. If it's checked and depressed, this is the string that will be generated for the state. So seeing that in action, as I hold down the mouse there, that's the checked depressed Mac OS theme of that label, of that checkbox. Any questions there about theming?
We don't seem to have any very much about theming. Somebody's asked, David Dingley asked if we can download 9.0 DP7, which I think has just been released. So yes, you can.
Okay,
I think
that's fine. We'll crack on. We've got a lot to cover anyway, so that's. And if you obviously you can always ask your questions via email, and the answers might appear in a subsequent session. Okay, let's take a look at the animated checkbox. I do like this little example, I must confess. So all it is a very slow. I didn't intend to have it that slow, but let's speed it up. Very slow animation of checking checkbox. Now, lots of this is the same code as the Mac OS one. First of all, I'm going to. Oh, that's interesting. Let's make it a lot quicker. Well, I think this is a function of the slowness of my laptop currently. Anyway, trust me that goes a lot quicker on a much more powerful machine. So the way this is achieved is with the onTimer event. First of all, let's take a look at onPaint. So the onPaint handler, all this stuff before is just drawing the border in the background. Here's the key part. If checked is true, then it draws the animated check mark. So we have a variable %, and we use, it's an optional integer here. So we use nothing to indicate that it's not got any value currently in it, which means that we know this is being called for the first time. We put 0 into the percentage, and then basically we are just using interpolation of points to determine how far to draw the check mark at each percentage level. So I have a couple of predefined start point, midpoint, and end point. The start point is the top left of the check mark, and then the midpoint down here, and then the endpoint at the top right. And I've got a constant for what percentage done it will be when it hits the midpoint. And then it's just some pretty simple maths to determine what point it's at on the check mark for each percentage. So move to the start point and make a line to the end point. If that's gone past the midpoint, then we add another line onto the end of that up to wherever it is on the second half of the check mark. And then just translate that path to the top left of the checkbox. It's just as simple as that. So the magic really is just here in the scheduling the timer at the beginning, and then in your onTimer handler, you just increment the percentage and reschedule the timer and call redraw all. And that's how to get simple animation with your painting.
Okay, great. That's we do have a couple of questions here, Ali.
Sure.
So somebody's asked a very pertinent question. Is there a comprehensive user guide for LCB? So I wonder if you could perhaps demo where you find that within LiveCode?
I can indeed. So all you need to do there is click on this dictionary tab. Apologize for the spinning pizza. My machine is slightly slow. And have a look down here. So the main guides that you'll want to look at. Well, okay, there's two guides you want to look at. There is the Extending LiveCode guide. And this is sort of an introduction to LiveCode Builder extensions, showing you how to build them, how to create a simple widget, all the basics. Of course, all this stuff is also covered in the widget course that was announced earlier on. So hopefully between those two things, it's a pretty comprehensive guide to how to get on with building widgets. There's also the LiveCode Builder language reference. And this is a slightly more technical document, but it's still worth reading. It tells you about things that are intrinsic to the language, and how comments work, language generation, that sort of thing, and types. It's pretty important stuff for LiveCode Builder.
Great, thanks. There's another, just a little note here for you as well. Gregory has asked for a possible future session. One thing I'm really in need of is a vertical version of the segmented control. So you might want to make a note of that.
Okay, great.
Yes.
That's a good idea.
What you're going to be doing really is coming back next month and the month after and answering all the questions and the feedback from the widget course. So you're all going to have a chance to go through that widget course and then think about your questions and send them into Ali. Anyway, back to you, Ali. Sorry, interrupted.
Thank you. Yes, expect to see a vertical segmented control next time. Well, it's not a promise. I should make that clear probably, but it's a very good idea. Okay, let's canter on. So again, I've got some description of the code for that animated checkbox in my slides. You can find, incidentally, all of the slides, all of the code, and some support stacks in the folder for this talk in the LiveCode Global Resources. Okay, handler variables. Suppose you ask the following questions. What's your favorite LCB feature? And how do I manage array data in a widget? Well, I don't know if this quite answers either of those questions. It's one of my favorite LCD features, certainly. I might answer with the tree view widget because it makes extensive use of the thing I'm going to show you. But I'm going to digress with a little library first, sort of handy thing. So basically, I'm talking about handler variables. So first of all, for a handler variable, you need to define a type. And any handler with the same typed parameters and the same return type can be put into a variable of that type. So I have a handler type array apply here, and a handler apply to array, which takes a handler of type array apply. And all it does is apply that handler to every key in the array. It's very simple. Well, it's not simple, is it? It's this is quite can be quite complicated to get your head around. Hopefully, I've got a couple of examples which will hopefully demonstrate this. So here's my array apply library. Let's just load that. Nothing to see there, obviously, because it's just a library. Now, let's take a look at the script first. So I've put a couple of things in here. This increment all in array handler, which all it does is go through an array and add 1 to all the elements if they're numeric. And I've used this generic apply to array handler, and increment apply here is the handler of array apply type. So essentially what happens is this handler gets called on every element of the array. This can be maybe looked at in quite a lot more detail, but it might just be better to show you the fruits of this. Okay, I've got a second public handler in this library which formats an array as a string. So it's similar to the rev put array command in the IDE. And that similarly iterates through the elements of an array and formats the keys and values. So if I go back to my examples here, let's just take a look at the format array. Script. So I've just got an example array, and it's going to use that array to string handler that's defined in the library. And that's how it outputs the array as a string. Now, I'll just show you this button too. So it also uses the array to string, but it's to demonstrate just adding 1 to all of the elements of the array.
Okay. We do have another interesting question here for you.
Okay.
Could LCB be used to access image data from the camera on all devices? It's from Jonathan.
Yes, certainly in theory. At the moment, you would be able to do it on Android with the Java FFI. And once we have the Objective-C FFI as well, then it would be similar to do it on iOS. So I haven't looked at it in detail, but I would be shocked if you couldn't do it in 9DP7 on Android.
Great.
I'll go into so that my next couple of final sort of examples will be just Android native stuff. So hopefully I can give you a better idea of how that might be done.
And Gregory would like you to know that he totally loves the tree widget and uses it for data storage instead of setting custom properties now.
Great, that's really good to hear. I like it a lot too. So yeah, one of the reasons I like this, I like the tree view is because it uses this handler type thing to iterate through. It actually has to store the array that it's representing, and also it keeps it with a list representation. So I use this handler type sort of iteration thing to simultaneously update its array and list backing stores. So this example that I've given you just here is probably somewhat over-engineered. You can do the same thing in script, but it's a very powerful concept, and there are a lot of pretty interesting things you can do. It's a good thing to try and get your head around. So this example, I've got a small challenge, which is modify this library so you can customize the output from LiveCode script with a different key value format, or perhaps a different presentation of the array altogether. So that will require you to change this API slightly, the array to string. We maybe pass in delimiters, and even something simple like changing the delimiter between the keys and values, I think will increase your understanding of what's going on in this library. Right. Let's get rid of this. Android native button. Suppose you ask the following question: what's going on at the frontier of LCB at the moment? I would answer with the Android native button widget, although it's almost slightly out of date now, given the progress on Objective-C FFI. So maybe a much more pertinent question would be the one that was asked earlier. Effectively, how do I access the native APIs through LCB? So let's take a look at the Android native button. In fact, I'm going to quickly skip here and show you. So this Android native widget, I've named it generically. What it is essentially the Android button, the native button, a sort of stripped down version. It doesn't have any click action or anything. But I just want to use this to demonstrate something. So as it stands, this code would give you a widget which on Android gives you a native button. Now, if I've tweaked this to the extent that you can literally change this one thing here to toggle button. Now, let's build that widget. Oh no, it's already loaded. Not entirely sure why that's happened, but what I will do is quit LiveCode and reopen it. It's probably because of some testing that I was doing earlier. So here, essentially, this foreign handler, I have a good slide for this. I should skip onto that slide. This is binding to the constructor of the button, the Android button. But the constructor for all of these Android widgets is almost exactly the same. We just need to change the class. So android.widget.button is the class, and new is the syntax that we use in the binding string here for the constructor, and it takes a context, which is essentially just the context of the application. And you can, as I said before, just simply change this to a different type of widget. This is a widget in the Android sense. Where has my menu bar gone? It's gone behind my slides. Okay. So now, this is just a placeholder. I've got a stack here. Let's get rid of that and copy this new widget on. Save it and click test. Now, simply just changing which constructor that binds to will give us a different Android control once that's built. So once that's done, I will show you it on the phone I have right here. And you can also do this with the edit text widget, which is an editable text field. So these things really just, the basics of them are just, the code is already there. You just need to change. I've got an image here of, I did earlier on the Android emulator. Maybe doesn't look too much like one, but I promise you, I typed in a native editable field. Let's see, it's still preparing package. Okay, that's going to take a while.
Well, while we're waiting for that, perhaps there's time for a quick question from Herman.
Yes.
He's saying, the unsafe blocks, are these subject to future syntax changes?
No, really that they are there because these are foreign handler calls that are automatically unsafe. However, they actually, for the Java FFI stuff, it doesn't need to be marked unsafe. So actually, if you look at the background audio example, there's additional syntax _ safe to mark specific foreign handlers as safe. That isn't to do with whether the API changes or anything. It's just because you're using the FFI to call out of LiveCode. Okay, installing app on target device. This is taking a lot longer, probably because of running the webinar software and stuff like that.
Yeah, we're slowing you down, Ali.
Yes, if you weren't here though, I'd just be doing this on my own, and that would be not so great.
Yeah. Okay.
While we're waiting, I glossed over one of the most recent and sort of exciting aspects of the button widget, which is actually making it do something when you click it. Very important for buttons. So this is stuff that we've added very recently, so obviously just in 9DP7. And it allows you to register a handler as a callback for a specific listener. So here we pass in a handler which gets called when the on-click listener is triggered. So if you look at the code for this, all we do here is get the listener with a particular handler that we want to be called back when it's clicked, and set it on the native button. And then when we click it, this handler gets triggered. Now, there are a couple of last-minute threading issues that we had to deal with. So this, for example, this isn't a threading issue, but it's a wait loop issue. Some of these things, hopefully, we'll be able to remove from this code so that you could just post NAS up. But at the moment, it's advised not to do much more than just posting from these callbacks, as you might get unexpected behavior. I'm still waiting for this app to install on my target device. Maybe this is going to be a grand finale, is it? Just seeing a toggle button on the device. Okay, any more questions about the Android FFI stuff?
We do have a question.
Great.
Curiously, it says it's from Mark Waddingham, and then it says it's not Mark. And it says, so how would we get text typed in a field?
Well, do you mean how would we get text typed in a field? Well, I suppose on the emulator, I was able to just use the keyboard. But
we have clarification of a native field.
Yes.
Yes.
What you would get is the putting the entry point in the field. I'm not sure actually if that's a feature of the native field, that it would automatically trigger the keyboard. But I suspect this would be, well, you would want another one of these listener callbacks for when you put the text entry point in the field in order to do something such as show a keyboard at that point.
So yes, the comment there is back to LCS. Perhaps. I don't know. Anyway, are we still installing? We are still installing them.
Oh, this certainly didn't take this long before. I'm sorry. The perils of live.
Yeah. So I wonder if anyone else has got any more questions for us. Roll up, let's have your questions.
One thing I thought was quite interesting when I was looking at the recording stuff for Kevin, I had to quickly write this utility library to be able to write to a public folder. And I think this is a very nice, just very simple utility. You put in the file name that you want and it will give you the full path to a public place to put that document, and give you external storage, writing permissions to boot.
Now then. Rogerella has said, will there be support for Android Wear?
Android Wear?
Mm-hmm. It appears to be spelled W-E-A-R.
Ah, is that that's the watch, isn't it? Is it?
Is that the watch, Roger? Would you like to confirm?
I'm not sure, to be honest. That may be a question for a future session to allow me time to investigate the answer to it.
He confirms, yes, it is the watch. So
right.
You need to look into. And Jim has said, I think this is about the previous question on typing text. I think he means how to send the text in a native field back to an LCS.
Oh, okay. Well, when you've created the native field, all you'll do is, so let's go back to this button example. It's a good question. So the native button, for example, it has a set text. So it binds to the set text method of the text view, which is how it sets the label of the button. Now, equally, you'll have a getText method that you can call on any given native field, which will return you the text. So all you would do with your native button is set up, your native text field. I don't have an example of a property here. Let's go back to the first example. So you would set up a property. Here you would call it text, and then seem to have put caps lock on there. And you just implement these handlers, and all they would do is call the foreign handler that's bound to the getText method, so that in LiveCode script, all you would do is get the text of widget 1 or widget native field. And just like a normal field, you can plumb it in such a way that it would work just like a normal text field.
Great. Well, I hope that answered your question. How are we doing? We're still installing. Oh,
it's not going to work, is it?
I've got Alagi had a suggestion that you should turn it off and on again. But
that is a good suggestion.
So Clarence is asking, are these Android widgets available now in the new releases of LiveCode?
The Android button is, yes. The other stuff, the edit text field and the toggle button that I was trying to show you, they aren't actually they're not fixed widgets that we've put into the product, but it's easy enough to, and eventually some of these things will go into the product, but I guess part of the point is to try and show you how you can create whichever of these widgets you actually want for your apps. But yes, the Android button is there.
Okay, how's your build doing? Another quick look.
It does seem to have frozen. It's not getting past this 11, 12 o'clock.
I'm sorry, Ali, but I'm going to have to cut you off presently because Scott is waiting. You know, we can't wait to see. I mean, Scott is going to be amazing. So can't keep him waiting too long.
Right, happy to yield. Sorry that didn't work.
One more question and then we'll go. Ralph is asking, when we can do this in iOS, how much of this code will be common to both platforms?
Hang on, just... we put between these things. There'll be no code in common at the sort of really like lowest level. But we'll certainly could put a sort of layer in between to make the code common if that was if that helped people to use them. Certainly, we're planning on implementing some utility libraries, which I imagine would have some sort of common APIs between different platforms.
You can just turn your camera back on again.
Oh, sorry.
So that we can say goodbye properly.
I didn't know I turned it off. Hello.
Yes. So yeah, well, that's great, and that does sound like an interesting suggestion, making it common functionality, although it sounds a little tricky. Okay. Oh, Panos suggested that maybe your device cable was disconnected. That's why it wasn't building.
That's possible.
The classic, is it plugged in question.
It claims to be plugged in.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, I'm sorry, but I think we have to go now.
That's fine.
And as always, folks, stand by. We will close this room, open another one. Please check your email for the next link. Or you may be able to refresh the session to move on to the next session. But yeah, so see you all next month, guys. Send your questions into Ali. Send to support@livecode.com. Question for widget session next month. Okay?
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.